All right, a couple things as we start. The first thing is, just so you're aware of this, do I have two of these open? Okay, whatever. I believe, and I think I'm in the minority here as far as people who work for this place, but I believe that there is some kind of a glitch that they have in their tool here. This is what I have to fill out every day. So I have to go to academics, and for this class, and then I have to go to attendance, and right here, okay, and I have to do this every day. Okay, it's not that it's a big thing, but when you walk in late and I change it, and then I have to go in and edit it, it doesn't always save. So I get nasty emails sent to me by vice presidents asking me why I'm not doing attendance. I'm really tired of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take attendance at if we start at 12:35, I'm going to take it like about 10 minutes after class starts. And if you're not there, you're not here. That's not a threat. I'm just telling you that. Now, things can happen. Maybe I told you this. I had Jesse, one of my first year students. He came in a half an hour late. I think it was Thursday last week, and he goes, "Mr. Scott, I know this isn't an excuse." He shows me, says, "But the cop ticketed me for going 85 in the 60 zone on the way here and decided he wanted to talk to me about why that was a bad thing." So it took a half an hour. I understand that there was nothing he could do about it. All right. But it's not so much in this class, but especially in the morning class. He's, "Sorry, I overslept." You know what? I'm sick of hearing that. I don't know how you're going to get a job and tell the person that you work for, "Sorry, I overslept." I don't know how many times you're going to be able to do that before you might get in trouble. All right. So that's the first thing. Brady emailed me. He is actually interviewing for a position I think at 2:00 today. It's IT related, but I don't know what it is, so I said I would excuse him for that. All right. Second thing, and it may not mean anything to anybody in here, but I thought it was kind of cool. Maybe because I'm weird. But my daughter got her wedding dress this weekend, and she got it with a guy from Say Yes to the Dress. So he was actually at a place in St. Louis, and I'm not supposed to say it, but she bought one of his dresses. And Dad paid for the down payment for the dress, which was 4 figures. Okay? And I told her Merry Christmas and maybe for the rest of your life. But so she's happy, I guess. And she's about 5'5". He must be about 5'7".
Do you have pictures of the dress?
No, she won't let me see it.
Oh my god.
Her mom has seen it, and I don't know who else, but she won't let me see it.
When she gets married, you need to bring her pictures of this
Yeah,
dress.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, you guys have, I showed you this, right? Well, I think it's in
Did you
here.
guys pick a website yet, by the way?
Yeah, this is, Andrews was the one that won. He did his in Mobirise, but this was his. And let's see, there's the ceremony. That's actually where they're going to have it. I don't know if any of you know the story of this. There is a country club that is in St. Charles, I think. It burned down last summer. They are rebuilding it. It was wood. It's going to be metal and brick. That's the way it's going to look. Right now there is a fireplace there and not much else. All right. What's that? Oh yeah. Yeah, they say it will. And then they had to give me their story, so of course she did and he didn't. The wedding party, they didn't give me any pictures, so we just used a bunch of family pictures. Accommodations. No, accommodations. There we go. Come on. No, it's not picking up the accommodations page for whatever. Explore St. Louis, and they had to actually put an RSVP in there with the registry. They said, "Where's she registered?" I have no idea, so I made those up. But supposedly, she's got pictures of the first time she tried on dresses, and that's going to be put in here. But she doesn't want that dress to be shown.
So I'm guessing you'll be updating the website as
Yes.
it goes along.
Yes, but the other thing I have to do is buy the domain, and I want to basically move all the stuff over there. So, and I'm going to tape that so the class sees how that's done. All right. But I did the same thing that Evan did in St. Louis last year. So Andrew won. I gave him $100. And everybody else, we had pizza. So
Were the other ones pretty good too, though?
they were good. Yeah, there were a lot of them that were good. There were some that were challenging. So, all right. So let's get started. First thing is, I realized I never really gave you a lot about like an intro to MVC, so we are going to get one, but it's going to be quick. All right. Some of this stuff, again, we have had, but if you need a good explanation, because this is Microsoft's, this isn't mine. So if you read that, I'm going to leave that up there for just a second, but you should have an idea and an understanding of what MVC is. We are going to go over an online lesson that's out there from Microsoft, and it's a 7-part series. I've done the first 6 parts. I'm actually having some problems with Azure, as I thought I probably would. But we're going to go over as much of the first 6 parts today as we can. If we get through all 6, that's great, because then we should be able to do the Azure stuff tomorrow in about an hour. And then you'll have the rest of the period that if you're still working on that first project, that you'll have time to do that. Wednesday, again, will be a lab. Thursday, again, will be a lab. Friday, we don't meet. Everybody knows that now, right? Because it's Veterans Day, so the school is off. It's closed. Okay? All right. But what I liked about this, they talked about why you should build an MVC-based application as opposed to a forms-based application. All right? And they went through this. Again, it's not my goal in here to sit and read to you. All right? I think you all know how to read. I did email this article to you, and the next one I'm going to go over, and an SQL file that you're going to need as we start the project. So those have all been emailed to you. That's what I was doing right before class. All right. So here's the advantage going the other way if you decide why would you want a web forms application. Like I said, it's Microsoft, and it's pretty well written. All right. But it's amazing, like I said, with this separation of tasks, when you think model view controller and you think HTML, CSS, JavaScript, we always seem to be talking about separation of concerns. All right. All right. I'll just leave it at that. So this second one here, this you also have, but I wanted to show you this because I actually combine information from 2 articles. So when you come in and you create a brand new project, it looks like this. You may or may not have noticed that, but when you create a brand new MVC project, this is what it looks like. All right, literally. So some of the stuff that's in here we've talked about, some of it we haven't talked about. So let's just talk about all of it right now. App data, it goes without saying, that's where your database goes. I don't think we have to say that anymore. All right. The next one is App Start. And App Start actually holds 3 different files. The first one it holds there is bundle config. And what bundle config does is it allows you, it's very similar to when we had a master page, and on that master page, we put links in there to all of our CSS files and all of our JavaScript files. It's virtually the same thing. It's done in a little bit different syntax, but the idea is the same. All right. There are ways that you can do filtering in here. I have not done any of it, so I'm not the one to tell you about it. But if you do filtering, you can do the filtering in the filter config. And then finally, the route config will basically show by default how things are going to be set up. All right? So you may or may not know this, but by default, the way that it's set up, so let's just assume for a second that your port number is 31678. Just made that up. So you got your ASP port and it's got this. And that's all you have. When you hit enter, if you do that, what comes up by default is this. And what that means is by default, it brings up the index.html file from your home controller. You can open up any controller you want from this page. All right? And then if you just have the name of the controller, it'll give the default name here. So in other words, if we left this off and we just put home, it'll put index there because index is the default name. All right? but it'll put whatever name that you've defined inside of that route config file. Next is content, and you know this. This is very much trimmed down. Okay. In other words, what does it give you there? It gives you Bootstrap CSS, Bootstrap Min CSS, and Site CSS. You may or may not have looked at the site.css. I may or may not have shown it to you. But virtually everything that's in there, it's a whole spanking 10 lines or so of CSS. That's all stuff so that your Jumbotron and the like display in a halfway decent looking manner. And that's about all that is. All right. Next are controllers, and you know what controllers are. We talked about this. Controllers they grab the URL request, all right, as it comes in. They forward it over to the correct model. Once the model goes and works with the data model to give usually database data that it needs, it sends it back to the controller, and the controller figures out which view to call so that the information can be sent back in HTML to whatever requested the information to begin with. By default, when you set up a new project, usually you might have a couple of other intermediate files in there, but the home controller is really the only controller that you have in there. All right. Then you have your fonts. Again, this is old, as we talked about. This is the glyphicons that come with Bootstrap 3.3. Since we should be in Bootstrap 4 right now. All right, those are gone, and you're supposed to use Font Awesome. That's one of the reasons I've asked you to use Font Awesome. All right, it's interesting because the first year people, just like with you guys, they're on the last day of class, their portfolios are due, and I'm making them use Bootstrap. And a lot of them have gotten really good at Mobilize, but I don't care. I'm making them use Bootstrap anyway. And some of them are a little miffed about that. I said, well, once you go into your second semester, if you want to convert it over, you can. But I'm forcing them to use Bootstrap. All right, because with a lot of them, we did a Bootstrap exercise as a class, not the same one you did, and they had a couple other things, but it was a lot of just data entry. And I don't want that. I wanted them to at least have something. So somebody asked, do we do it in version 3 or version 4? And I said, you can pick. If you want it to be the latest and greatest, the most up-to-date, you do it in version 4. All right. And I had another person ask, well, if let's say it's next semester and I do it in Mobilize, is a prospective employer going to hold that against me because I use that instead of Bootstrap? And I said, how do I answer that question? It depends on the employer. And I don't think they'd ever hold it against you. All right. Some employers might think, well, look, this looks really professional, and there was a lot of drag and drop. Maybe they like that. I don't know. All right. So the models, again, hold our class files. And, just a couple things. This was from a Microsoft article. You can actually rename that folder to anything you want, but no one does. It's one of those things where you can do things, but why you would do it, I don't really know. All right. Scripts holds all of your Bootstrap JS and your jQuery JS stuff. There is a lot of stuff in here that we just don't have time to go over, such as, well, if you notice, there's a Jquery Validate.js. Now, that's one possibly, Evan, that you and Brady may want to take a look at. I don't know if you have or not. I've actually worked with that. And you can set up, there's validation rules and a lot of other stuff that you can set up. But again, the problem with that is that can be a lot of work, and that only works on the client side. The stuff that we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes, where we will get into data annotations for setting up validation, that works on the client or the server side. All right. Views, again, those are our HTML files for the application. As it says, typically a view file is a .cs HTML file, C# HTML. In other words, it's a Razor file. And Razor files allow you to combine C# and HTML in the same file. I always thought this was kind of funny because, not haha, but they talked about separation of concerns with model view controller. Then they're talking about bringing the stuff together so you can put it in the same file. That almost seems contradictory to what I thought you'd want to do, but that's the way they've done it. Now, what you're going to see in here, if you notice under home, we've got about, contact, and index. Everybody sees these, right? Well, remember what pages you get by default. You get a home page. You get an about page. You get a contact page. That index.html is linked to your home page. The about.cshtml, that's your about page. And the contact.cshtml, that's for your contact page. So you can go in and make changes on those pages. All right? Then finally, as it says, the global.asax file has code that allows you to respond to events. Probably the biggest one is this. Application start, which runs when you start the application. What that file does, if you've never looked at it, is it brings in bundle config and route config, except it brings in those configuration files so that they're available to you. It also has in there application error, so that if you decide you're going to write your own custom error pages, you can handle a lot of that stuff right there. All right. There's packages config. And I will tell you, it's amazing because I've been watching over the last week some videos and stuff on Visual Studio 17. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but Microsoft changes stuff with every version. So a lot of the stuff that we'll do today, because it's Visual Studio 15, because that's what we have on our machines, will be different when I teach the class again next fall for Visual Studio 17. And who knows, by that time, they may have Visual Studio 18 or 19. So it might be different again still. I don't have any idea. And then there's web config, which again contains all the application level different stuff. All right, so hopefully that all made sense. And you might say, well, that was a waste of time. It wasn't meant to be. All right, but what I'm going to go through here is this. This is a seven part series that's under docs.microsoft.com. We're going to go through all the steps. I want to show you what I was able to do. I want to show you what I wasn't able to do. All right? And as far as, bless you, as what I wasn't able to do, most of it, believe it or not, is in this first one, right here, this one. So we're going to go over this because what the author asks you to do in here, when you set up the database, you don't have to do this yet, but if you look, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new program in just a second, all right? So I'm going to come in here, File, New, Project. I'm just going to call it MVC2 because this is the second one that we're doing. And I'm going to browse over and put it onto the desktop. ASP.NET Web Application. You've seen all this stuff before. All right? Now, what the claim is by the people from Microsoft is, all you basically have to do if you wanted to go to Azure is just check right there. But there is more to it than that. That is actually correct if A, you already have an Azure account, and B, you're not doing anything with databases. So in other words, if you're just going to do a very simple site and boom, you want to host it, that will work then. All right. The authentication, I think we've talked about that enough. Again, I was going to mention this, not to put you on the spot, or try to keep putting you on the spot, but like Evan, when we go and talk to their IT people, they may want to choose that one. They may want to choose work and school accounts. I don't know. They don't want no authentication. They don't want Windows authentication because that's basically no authentication. And they probably don't want individual user accounts because that lets people go in from third parties. So I would think what they're going to want is work and school accounts. That said, they're going to have to set that up. I mean, all you can do is suggest that to them, but their guy is going to have to do some investigatory work on his part. All right. But I'm just for now, just so we see it, I'm gonna use no authentication. That's fine. MVC, we've talked about this stuff, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore other than that. All right. But if you look in here, what the author says they want you to do is to create a brand new project, okay? And they want you to do it a little bit different. So if you look in here, it says launch Visual Studio and create an SQL Server project. So in other words, if you look up on the screen here, what I've always done is under Visual C# up here, we've chosen web. But if you go underneath that, there is a thing here that says SQL Server. All right, I did that. And instead of calling it Contoso or Contoso, however you pronounce that, University Data, I made mine, and I called it Rankin, Technical College Data. All right, did all that. Everything was cool. I chose, as they said there, choose Microsoft Azure, no problem. Did all that. Did the add, new item, did all that, brought in the new table, did all that, created the table, no problem. Everything was cool. I was feeling pretty good. Did the course, that was good. Did the enrollment, that was good. Then it said to do this. It said they wanted you to come in here and create this post-deployment script that had this in there. And in other words, what they're saying is the course table will have 3 entries. Entry 1, so course ID 1 will be economics, all right, and it's 3 credits. Course entry 2 will have a course ID of 2, it's literature, and it's 3 credits. Course ID 3 will have an ID of 3, it's chemistry, and it's 4 credits. You all get that. I mean, I have no doubt about that. Then it said, okay, let's go and put a couple student records in. So this is the student ID 1. That's the student last name, the student first name, and the date they enrolled. Does all that make sense? So ID, last name, first name, enrollment date. All right. Then we were supposed to go and create one more, and we had another table called enrollment. The enrollment table, if you've never heard this term before, it's a lookup table. So the idea behind enrollment is we do not have a field. We do not have a field in this. So here's student. Student ID, last name, first name, enrollment date. That's what we have in the student table. All right? Then we have a course table. Course ID, title, and credits. There is no field in common between those 2 tables. So we create the enrollment table, which has got an enrollment ID and a grade, but these 2 fields right there, those 2 fields are put in so that you are able to link those 2 tables together. All right? That's their sole purpose. They are foreign keys in this table, and you even set it up like this. Does all that make sense? All right, and now that I look at it, I should have, but we'll end up doing it as a class. It's no biggie. I changed this stuff because I wanted to make it more reflective, so it actually would be a ranking. All right, so these are my first year students right here. They only are in 1 class. So I also came in, where are those? Oh, there we go. I also went in and put you guys in. All right. And then I went and added stuff for all three of your classes. All right. Now you might not like it. Why did I only get a 3.20? I literally grabbed the ones that they used in the example and I copied them in and wasn't changing them. Except a couple of them were less than 3, so I added a 1 to it, so it was 3 point something instead of 2 point something. But they don't mean anything. I know what your grades are. If I go back and look, I don't care what they are. All right, so we're going to do that. So what I'm telling you is, going through this, I got to this point, then I did the build. All right, when I did the build, this is what you're supposed to be able to do. You've seen this before. You refresh, you right mouse click on one of your tables, and one of the things in there says view data, and it fills it up with data for you. Guess what mine did not say? View data. It said that it built it. It said that I had the right number of records in, but when I right mouse clicked on it, it did not show me view data as one of the possibles. I don't know why, but it didn't. So I just went back and built it the way that we have been building things. Does that make sense? So if it does, let's start. So I'd like you to go in. I just did this. I'm going to actually just remove it and create it again right with you. So let me cancel. Cancel. Just made this MVC2. I probably have that folder in there. At least I thought I would have. No, I don't see it. So all of you, if you would please, let's start up a brand new, get into Visual Studio and start up a new project. We will just do this together. Again, my hope is that we get this done no later than tomorrow. I will ask you to make some modifications on it as we've been doing. This is another example of what's called database first. So we are creating the database and then adding the stuff to it. Next week when you come in here, all right, we will be doing the database last, or code first as it's usually called. We're going to be doing that. Then we'll see where we are for time. And if we have time, we'll have one more project where I can show you some JSON. So at least you'll have experience and you'll see it. JSON is JavaScript object notation. Yes.
Are you giving us time, as usual, to work on our portfolio
Yes.
towards the end?
Yes. The goal is at least the last week you will have to work on. And I'm not going to schedule anything in that last week. All right? So I take it for granted everybody's here. Right there. So we're going to do a file, new, project, ASP.NET web application. I'm going to call mine MVC2. You can call yours MVC Demo2. Really doesn't matter. You probably should save it onto your desktop, but again, if you've been saving everything in some common area all the time, then that's where you should save it. All right? I've never mentioned this before, but I was watching a video this morning where the guy was really harping on this. Always make sure your application insights is checked, because if you do, the system will go and it'll actually do some optimization for you behind the scenes. I didn't know that. All right, but it's checked anyway, so I guess we just leave it checked. All right. So again, web, this is what I'm showing you if you do look underneath here, that under the other project types, I think it was one of these that was in here. I don't remember. But there was a thing in here for actually creating the SQL Server database project, because that's what I used. All right. But we're not doing that. We've got web. We've got ASP.NET web application. We're calling it MVC2 or something similar to that. All right. Notice, too, that if we choose add to source control, everybody see that? We're not going to do that, but we are hopefully for the last one. Guess what that does? It's going to allow you to use Git and a bunch of other stuff. All right? So if you've got all that stuff checked and everything set up, click OK. We want an MVC project. We do not want to host in the cloud yet. All right? We want to make sure that the MVC is checked, which it should be by default. We don't care still about the unit tests. So if your screen looks like mine, again, click OK. No, I don't care about the authorization. We can just leave it to whatever was set for it. You're right. I should have, but it's fine. If you want to set it to no authorization, you can.
When you did it in the Visual Studio's SQL Server. How come we're doing it in Web?
Because mine didn't work when I did that kind of project. It worked until I got to that page.
Okay.
But then on the next page, it said, do this. And none of that would work. And then it really went downhill.
Did it work when you did it in this?
Yes. Yeah, I've got the whole thing done except for porting it over to Azure. Everything else is done. I've actually added more records because right now, what you're going to see when we get going is you're going to have like a history. So if you bring you up, you're going to have a table with your 3 grades. But I only had 1 grade for everybody, so I went back. So mine is done, but mine, I've got less records than you've got. That's all. So I'm expecting that now, after this comes up, and yours, I know some of yours takes longer than even this is. I get that. But what I'm expecting is that you now all understand what these various folders and files in here are doing. All right? And I don't mean where, yeah, I do, and I could go out and give a talk on it now. I don't mean that. But it's not inconceivable that if you go for a job, and let's just say for a second, you go for a job as an ASP.NET programmer, they will ask you, have you had any experience with MVC? And then if you say yes, then everything is fair game. You know, well, Evan, what does the bundle.config file do? And don't think you won't be asked stuff like that. All right. And again, hopefully everybody realizes this is just a start file. All right. You don't ever need that thing up. But again, everything that's in here now, ideally, you know, or you have some kind of an idea of what it is and what it's doing. Now, we didn't talk about, for example, favicon, because you know what a favicon is. All right. And I don't really see the need to go over stuff like that. Also, if you notice here under models, you've got 3 models here: account view, identity, and manage. Those are ones that are created for you by default. And under controllers, you've got account, home, and manage. So notice the account controller has an account view model. The manage controller has a manage view model. The home has the identity model right now. All right. So some stuff is just linked up. It's set up like that for you. All right. So it's probably the kind of thing that you shouldn't monkey with. Now, with what we're doing, I'm just telling you this in advance, with what we are doing. Tiffany asked, did it work? Yes. But what's weird is it built my models for me under my models folder, but when I did this, it doesn't show the models as being there. So I thought, that's okay, I'll just right mouse click, choose add class, and put it in. And then it came back and it told me, no, it's there. You can't do it. So what I had to do is I had to go back out to my project. Still don't know where it is because I didn't think I called that's the one I got that's working. All right, I'll just show you it in here. So I had to go out to here and go out to Demo2 and go out to models, and then it showed them to me. And I could go in because I thought, well, is this going to work? So for example, I have to change the student model. So I came in here and did this and actually brought it up in Notepad, made changes to it, saved it, and then rebuilt the solution, and it worked just fine. I'm not sure why my models weren't showing. I have not had that happen to me before. Yes?
They show up at the bottom of the list.
They weren't there either.
Really?
No. I looked. All right. I know what you're saying, and you're right. That's, usually that's where they'll show up. They weren't there anyplace. All right. So we are here, right on MVC2. Okay? All right. And I've got my cheat sheets, as always, here, so I'm going to follow those just to make sure I'm not missing anything. They go through this big thing that tells you that they're using CRUD, what they're doing, why they're doing it, etc. All right? The first thing that we are going to do, and again, if I get done with this and one of you raises your hand and goes, couldn't you also do it this way? Probably. There's always more than one way of doing the same thing. What I'd like to do is to have us create the schema for create the database, create the schema for the 3 tables, grab that file and bring the stuff in, then take a break. All right? So the way I always do it, and I don't know why, but I do it this way, is I right mouse click on here, all right, and I click add, and I go down to SQL Server Database. Again, there are other ways of doing it other than this way, but this is the way that I do it. Okay? So right mouse click on my app data folder, chose add, and went to SQL Server Database. As you'd guess, it asks me for a name. Now I've already done this twice, so I've got a RTC in there and I've got a Rankin in there. Okay? So I'm going to just call this, you can call it what you want. If you want to just call it RTC or something, that's fine. I've already got an RTC, so I'm going to make RTC2 because I already have an RTC. You may not want to put a 2 on yours unless you already have a database called RTC.
It doesn't give me an option to ask for to add an SQL database, server database.
Well, then, okay, if yours doesn't show that, then try to right mouse click, choose add, choose new item, and see if it shows you here. Does it show you it there? Okay. And if you said, why doesn't mine show? I honestly have no idea. All right. So again, I'm calling mine RTC2. Feel free to just call yours RTC or whatever you like. You really shouldn't put blank spaces in this name. It's not that you can't, all right? It's just not recommended, all right? There's a chance that this will be used in paths and in other things, and just putting blank spaces in there will screw things up. In fact, I would be to the point where if you really wanted to call yours Rankin Technical College, I would call it Rankin _ Technical _ College. I would do that, or I'd run them all together, all right, as one word. So mine is RTC2, all right, and I'm going to click Add. Now, you'll know that that worked because two things should happen if you look on the screen right now. First of all, notice I've got an RTC2 MDF and LDF file. What's that LDF file again? As it says, it's a log file, right? And I also have it here. So notice I also have this. Okay? Now, I don't know why, but I always refresh just because I hate seeing that check mark there. But it seems to work okay. I've left the check mark there and gone through everything, and it still works. All right? If this is not showing on yours, you have to click View, and you have to choose Server Explorer. These are things that by now should be very much second nature to you. All right? So you know how to bring up either the Server Explorer or you know how to bring up the toolbox in there. All right? So I'm going to, where I've got RTC2.mdf, I'm going to click the arrow, and I'm going to go over to Tables, and I'm going to right mouse click on Tables here, and I'm going to choose Add New Table. All right? Now, for the way I'm going to do this, if you raise your hand when I get done and you go, do we have to do it that way? No. But I'm telling you, I've tended to, when I create my databases, I create everything down here. I just do. That's in what's called the TSQL or the Transact SQL window. So I'm going to immediately call this student. All right? And again, I'm having you use what they did in the book. So they have student ID, and they have both the I and the D capitalized. All right? Also, after we've got int and before the not null, we're not even going to put the primary key thing in there. But between int and not null, you all know what this means. This says what? We're going to have it automatically increment for us, correct? We're going to start with 1. I guess to be fair, they put a space there. We're going to start with 1, and we're going to have it increment by 1. The advantage of doing this is we don't have to worry about counting. All right? That's just one less field we have to worry about putting in. So, then in the next line, last name, which is one word, it will be an nvarchar of size 50, and we will allow nulls in there. I'm just anal about how I line stuff up. You don't have to do that. Does everybody realize you only need one space there, you don't need a space right there, etc. So if you'd rather space it the way you'd rather space it, then do it that way. All right? Now the next line is going to be identical to this line, except instead of last name, I'm going to say first name. So I'm going to copy that line and then paste it in. You don't have to do it that way. But I am. All right, so now I've got that in. One more field, and that is enrollment date. That is actually a date time field. All right, and we will allow that to be null. All right, and again, be as anal as you do or do not want to be with this. It's your call. There, now everything's little soldiers. All right, it's funny because one of my best friends from Blackhawk was a soldier. Whenever he sat in my classroom, he loved it when I said like little soldiers. He just thought that was great. All right. The other thing is, I'm saying here, primary key clustered and then parenthesis bracket, student ID, bracket, parenthesis, nope, just bracket, not parenthesis yet, ASC, parenthesis. Now, what you probably did not notice is when I started down here and I removed the primary key from right there, that got removed from here. The little key got removed. You may or may not have even noticed it. When we came back down and we added it here, that key came back. All right. So you could have created it by just going to the upper window and doing the same things that I just did. There is really no real advantage to doing it this way. All right. Did everybody hear that? There's no real advantage to doing that. All right. Am I right in assuming everybody has that table done? Everybody? Yes? Okay. So, as you know, we click Update. And what we're looking for are no errors. All right? If it comes up with no errors, like my window, and hopefully that's how your window looks, after you click the Update, then click Update Database. All right? And if you do that, what you should notice now is if I refresh right here, that I now have a table. All right? Again, these are things that by now for all of you should really be second nature. All right? I don't think that I'm asking too much of you or anything else for this stuff that we're doing right now to make sense. All right? All right, so that is our student table. Now, if you look up on the screen here, it's going to ask, I'm going to click the X, and it's going to say, oh, I thought it was going to ask me to save it, but it's fine. Okay? So we've got our first table out of 3 done. So I'm going to right mouse click on tables again on the tables folder and choose add new table. Now we're going to put in the second table. All right? This one is going to be called course, and I'm going to do the same things that I just did. Let me move this up higher so you can see everything that's in here that I'm putting in. All right? So this will be course ID. Again, it will be just like we had before. We're going to have in here identity 1, not null. And again, I'm going to remove the primary key designation from there. We'll add it back in just a minute. This has got 3 fields. So we've got title, which is an nvarchar of size 50. We will allow nulls for this, and we will have credits. And credits will be an int, and we will allow nulls for that. And then finally, again, primary key, clustered, and clustered is just a type of indexing that's used, a clustered index. It works faster internally than using a non-clustered index. So this will say course ID ASC. And you've got to spell primary correctly there. So that's the way that should look. And again, you can look at it now either up above or down below. Anybody want to take a wild guess over what we want to do next? Click Update. Again, that's what we're looking for. If that came up, then we want to eventually click the Update Database button. All right? And again, notice now if I right mouse click on here again and refresh, I now have 2 tables. I've got my course table and I have my students table. Okay? All right. I'm going to close this. And one last time, I'm going to right mouse click on tables, choose add new table. This is a bigger table, just so you know, because it's got the primary keys in it. So this one is called Enrollment. The primary key will be Enrollment ID. which again will be an int, which again will be identity, 1, 1, and again will be not null. All right, and we have grade. Later on, not now, but for grade, it's going to say decimal 3, 2. Now, I'm going to ask a question here. If you don't know, it's fine. But can somebody tell me what does that mean that where it says decimal 3, comma 2? The 2 is 2 places after the decimal point. The 3 is the total number of digits. So technically, right now, the biggest number you could put in there is 9.99. Does that make sense to everyone? We're later on, either today or tomorrow, we're going to set up a data annotation for it, which will say that it has to be between 0 and 4. All right, that way if you go in there and you try putting in 9.99, you're going to get an error message without you having to set up a validator or anything else. All right, so that's all fine. So we've got those 2 fields in there. The next one is course ID. We want that so we're able to hook onto the course table. That's an int, and that's a not null. And we also want student ID, which again will be an int, which again will be not null. Remember, I said this before, these are terms you have to at least start to develop a comfort level with. And that is, this is a lookup table. This table is basically designed so that we're able to bring those 2 tables together. Some people would say my use of lookup table right there is not a good one. Okay. All right. But it's going to now have in here, after we put in the primary key, we're going to put in the 2 foreign keys. All right. So the first thing here is, and notice, like I said, right up here, if you notice, yeah, I know. There is, if we go up here, notice by enrollment ID, there is no key there. There will be after we get done typing this in. And that is primary key, clustered, enrollment ID, ASC. All right, somebody tell me, it's what you think. What does that part mean? It means ascending order, but what does it mean? It means that we're going to put this by default in order by primary key in ascending order. So regardless of how you put it in, it's going to assume that the first record you put in is going to be 1, the second one is 2, etc. All right? So we've got that stuff. But now we have to go in, we have to hit comma again because we have to put in our 2 primary key constraints. And what I want you to understand is there are multiple ways we could do this. I'm going to show you the way quickly. We're not going to do it. So don't do this. But notice if I double clicked on foreign key here. All right, and right mouse clicked and chose add new foreign key. It would allow me to do it right there if I wanted to. I don't want to. All right, so I want to actually do it right down here. I'm going to do each one of these over 2 lines because otherwise you'll never have enough room to type, to see what I'm typing in. Oops. And you got to type constraint, not constrain. Okay. Sorry. dbo.course. Oh, sorry. Get bracket there too. Okay. So that's the first one. And I'll give you a second to type that in, and then we'll go put in the next one. All right, so when we're all done, these are our three tables that you see up on the board. All right? And what we're saying right here, just because I want you to understand this, or hopefully understand it, this, and this is really ugly. Do you notice there's only one set of braces? It starts here, brackets, and ends there. You see that? This right here, this whole thing, that's the name of the foreign key. That's all that is it's its name. So if Amin wanted to call his foreign keys Amin 1 and Amin 2, he could change those. But it's recommended that you use a structure like this because it says what we're doing is this is the current table, enrollment, foreign key for the enrollment table, and it's going to be referencing the course table and the course ID field. All right. That's literally what it's saying right there. So in other words, when we get done with this, that's saying that this field right here is a foreign key, an FK, that's referencing that. And it says on Delete Cascade. And if you don't know what that means is if I remove the course ID from here, since that's the parent table, automatically remove this one. It's a parent-child relationship. So in other words, if you kill any parent record, kill any child records that are associated with it. That's what it means. You don't have to do that. You know, on Delete Cascade, there's different ways that you can do it. All right, that's the one that's done very often. So we're going to do one more of these, and it's almost the same as this one. So you don't have to do this, but I'm going to highlight these two lines, copy them to the clipboard, paste them right underneath here, and then make my changes. All right, now I'm getting an error because right now I've got two of them that have the same name. So this will change right here to student ID. And I believe that's correct. Oh, I'm sorry. That's student there too. And I believe that's correct. And if you look up on the screen here, what you notice is, look, we've got two foreign keys. So again, we could have done it that way as well. There's a lot of different ways of doing the same thing. All right, I'm going to leave that up there if you've gotten yours done. As always, click your update button, And if it comes up and if the update succeeded, click the Update Database button that'll come up in the dialog box. Anyone way behind or don't understand anything we've done thus far? Is what we're doing, does it make sense? So now with this second one, now we've said this is a foreign key and it's going to be linked to that primary key. So those are the relationships that we've set up in our database. So, like I told you to do, I'm clicking Update. Looks like it's good. And I'm clicking Update Database. Looks like it's good. I'm going to close this. In fact, before I even close it, I'm just going to right mouse click on here again and choose Refresh. Now I've got 3 tables, and I'm going to close that file. All right, so now we've created all 3 of the tables. Anybody have any questions or any problems that you ran into doing this? What's that? It's not doing an update? It's not. Okay. Thank her. She must have found it, right? All right. So everyone has the 3 tables now, correct? All right. What I'd like you to do is to go out to that file that I emailed you. In other words, this file right here, try to find that file. I emailed this to you today. I emailed you 3 files. The 2 Word files that I've already shown you, and then this file. Take this file, however you do it, save it. I always save mine to the desktop and then open it up in Notepad. You can do it whatever way you want. You whether use brackets or Notepad++ like I have, or Notepad or whatever. Don't open it up in Word. All right. I'll give you a second to hopefully find that file. If for some reason you don't have it, you have to let me know. We'll get this done and then we'll take a break. Yes, it's called MVC Demo2 inserts.sql. If you have been able to find the file, if you have saved it to your desktop or whatever, I'll take your question in a second, but if you have done all that, then just highlight the entire file, Control-A, Control-C to copy it, go back into your program, and then, all right, what do we want to do? We want to just go to right mouse click, just on your tables folder is fine. Choose new query and paste it in. Hopefully that's just waiting, but it's going to paste it. It looks like it. It should work. I would not, other than the fact, again, I added those records, I have no reason to think, why it wouldn't work. Yes. I'll tell you what, let me finish this, we'll get this in, and then I'll put it up on the screen. Okay. may have mentioned this before. I may not have mentioned this before. I don't know. But if you look up on the screen here, you'll notice that strings are automatically put into red, keywords are automatically light blue, and numbers stay black. Everybody see that? All right. Now, if you have done all of that, if you have copied it in, you should be able to just click this button right here that says execute. Before I do, I'm going to move this up, all right, and I'm going to click the execute button. Oh, lovely. Incorrect syntax. Good golly.
Is it case sensitive because you put your tables in lowercase?
No, it shouldn't be case sensitive. But I want to look on this. It says level 15, state, line 47.
Missing commas.
There's missing commas. Oh! So you're going to have to put that comma in. I apologize.
A couple of them.
All right. If there's any other ones, there's one on 54 that's a missing comma as well. Looks like that's all of them. Try it again. And if it comes back and it looks like this, 3 rows affected, 16 rows affected, 32 rows affected, it worked. The difference between the one that I have done now and the one I just gave you is I added 16 more records. So mine says 3 rows affected, 16 rows affected, 16 rows affected. All right? Because I added all of your classes. You'll understand why I did that later on. All right? Now, if you look up on the screen here, there is no update, and we don't want to save this. So if it comes back and it says, you want to save it, just say no. Now, you could have saved it. All right? So if you wanted to, you could have saved it. But there really is no need to, because we should have the data in there now. So how do we know that? Again, I'm going to right mouse click and refresh. Then I'm going to right mouse click on course and choose show table data. And boom, there's my 3 courses. All right. I'm going to right mouse click on enrollment and choose show table data. And there is my enrollment data right there. And I'm going to right mouse click on student and choose show table data. And there is that. The only thing I don't like about this is, and again, I just used their example. I think you can use a straight date field in here. I don't see the advantage of having a date time.
Why are the question marks behind Anthony and Karen?
I don't know. That happened on mine too, but it's actually a good thing because we're gonna after the break we're gonna get rid of them. All right. I don't know. I did it on both of mine. All right.
I took them out already before.
That's okay. That's fine. Yeah, if you want to just manually take them out now, you can do that too. It's not going to hurt anything.
It was showing as a red dot for some reason.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sure it has something to do with the way I inputted it. I did something wrong on those 2 records. All right? I don't know what.
Yeah.
All right. So am I right then? Everybody was able to put, so you've all now created the database, you created the 3 tables, and you put in the records, correct? All right. It is 1:46. Let's come back at 2 o'clock, please. Not a bad time either if you want to do a save all. Just never hurts.